In putting the practice together, I was like, geez, there is something missing about my practice, and I don't know exactly what it is. And I was working at the movie theater, and I realized that I wasn't really setting myself up for success. Meaning, I would go into situations, I would go into my day all willy-nilly, you know. I would have to remember my tricks of attention in the moment where I needed my tricks, and trying to remember them was just really muddying up the process. And I'm like, all right, something has to help glue this all together. And it turns out that it's almost no, it is an essential element of the practice that we need to intend our points in advance. So that's what today's lesson is on. And our friend Jerry has given us the acronym IPA, which is easy to remember for any beer drinkers. But it stands for, what does it stand for? IPA, intentional point in advance. So now this is when we are starting to basically have our toolbox at the ready, right? And we'll talk about this more, but we can actually divide up our day. We can actually, identify areas of our day where certain points of attention will be better than other points of attention because, if we're in the forest and we're tree bathing, that might require different points of attention than if we're in a meeting in a business room, where there's no plant, there's no nature, putting that in air quotes because we're all nature, right? But there's no nature in sight. So you might need different points of attention. Let's say that you're in an area of very little resistance, like you feel really good. You're in your yoga class, and everybody's nice, and we're all just like hugging, and it's like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in so long. And we're all just, lovey-dovey, everything is good. Well, that might require different points of attention than when you're in a situation where it's not that. Maybe there's this asshole that keeps coming around and trying to make your life difficult and they want to make you miserable. You might need different points of attention in that situation than you need in another situation. And to really glue the practice together and to really solidify it, the more that you can make sure that your point is intended in advance, the better it will work. So when I wake up in the morning, I have a toolbox. I know exactly what I'm going to do. It is pretty much the same thing, it's different, but the same, like same format, but I kind of fill it differently when I wake up in the morning. But I immediately go into my practice. I immediately go into points of attention. And these are all points of attention that I have intended in advance. So if I am going to work, before I go to work, I decide where's my mind going to be on this walk. I don't get halfway through the walk and then I'm like, oh shit, well, my mind wasn't anywhere, and let me put it on the clouds or the sky or the trees or my body. All right, now I'm good. If that's the case, then that's the case. So if you forgot and you need to pick it up halfway through, pick it up halfway through, and that's a big W, big win. But ideally, it would be more beneficial to have these areas, these tricks of attention, these points of attention well thought out, well fleshed out, like you know exactly what you're going to do, leaving room for adaptation if necessary. But we don't want to always be adapting with our techniques, not always. That could get a little willy-nilly, and then it will feel less rooted, less solid. So really intending your points in advance is one of those things that and we'll talk about this term later, but it really prevents what I call the self-hustle. When we think we're doing something, like we really think we're doing it, but upon further investigation, maybe we really weren't. Maybe I wasn't really directing my attention where I wanted it to be. So making sure that the point of attention has been determined in advance is an essential element of the practice. So right now, I'm doing the same similar points of attention that I was in the last class. I'm still paying attention to the way that my breath is expectorating. No, the way that my breath is moving through, you know, I don't want to get technical, should I say Fahrenheit? The way that the breath is moving in a smooth fashion so that my words are a little bit more smooth and that my breath is still a point of attention. So I still have my breath as a point of attention. I still have my body as a point of attention. I'm still using external attention, and I have a state of being that I'm cultivating at this moment, which is my cognition direction. And again, we'll talk about the directions and really break that down for you. But the directions don't exist without this IPA principle, meaning that how can I fill out my categories of the directions if I don't have these intentional points in advance? So basically, it's walking out of your door or waking up in the morning and having a plan of what you're going to do, or just trying to hope for the best. Like you just wake up and you're just kind of like, hope for the best. I don't think the world that we live in, especially heading into November in this country, is a good environment for that type of thing. I don't think it's going to be conducive to our practice to go in without this solidity. And that's what IPA does, is it glues it together, it brings it together in a way that is more solid, more foundational. It helps to glue your practice, and of course, if it's more solid, if it feels tighter, then it's going to be easier. You can more quickly go back to your points of attention if you have intended them in advance. So here's an example. Or actually, is there any questions so far? Intending points in advance? Do you have any examples that you want to share real quick, or? Okay. Well, let's just say you're going for a walk. And that's an excellent opportunity for you to do your 4 directions practice. So you're like, all right, well, I'm going to walk today. What kind of day is it? Right? If it's raining and it's overcast, clouds and the sun and birds in the sky and things like that probably won't be your point of attention. How could it? Because they aren't there. Do you see what I mean? So I'm going to go on a walk and today it's raining. So maybe I'm going to pay attention to the sounds that rain makes, because rain makes very distinct sounds in the world when you pay attention to it. You know, the sound of rain going into the gutters, the sound of people stepping in puddles, the sound of the rain just hitting, the hard surface of the road or the sidewalk. So maybe that's one of my points of attention. And then I, want to be aware of my body and my posture while I'm walking. So I'm really going to maintain a certain type of structural integrity. As I walk, I'm going to make sure that I'm going heel to toe, with just a little bit of attention on the sidewalk, because I don't want to step in poop, because it's Chicago and it's everywhere. So you've got to be really careful when you're walking so that you don't step in dog poop. That's a good plan, right? I want to intend that in advance. You don't intend that in advance, you're going to step in dog poop because you weren't paying attention. But you don't need to pay attention to dog poop when you're in a clinic, or when you're in Walmart. Well, maybe Walmart. So it's raining. And maybe because it's raining, I could use reflections, the reflections that are made on the puddles and stuff, because the light of the world is different when it's raining. So you see, my points of attention are changing based on my environment, based on what I want to do throughout the day. And so I have to intend them in advance before I leave.